I'll be talking about large language models and Gen AI, things that are generally the hype, generally the buzz all these days. Anyone here hasn't heard of it? I'm assuming all of you have heard of Gen AI. Anyone hasn't heard of Gen AI, large language models? Or any of you is not excited to hear more about it? You've heard enough of it? Yeah, heard a lot of it? Okay, let's see. Right, so I'll try to have something interesting here for you so that you understand what to do with all these things. All right, a lot of us have been playing around with large language models, but probably not too much in terms of how do you actually use it and get building stuff with it. Okay. Now, one thing is given, right, that we cannot get away from is we are in the midst of this boom in large language models and Gen AI. There are companies all around us, tens if not hundreds of companies all around us building these models, small models, large models, 2 billion, 10 billion, 80 billion, 300 billion parameters. Right? There are so many models that are being built out there. Now, you have different kinds of models as well. You have these things called what we call hosted models, right? These are your, let's say, in the Google world, the Gemini API that you have, which is the hosted model of Gemini, the ChatGPT, where you have the GPT-3, GPT-4, these are hosted models. So you have the hosted models where somebody's hosting these models, but there are also many models that is out there where you can download these models and deploy it within your own infrastructure, okay? And now those models are what we call as open as well as third-party models, right? Some of these models are open and some are third-party, you have to pay for it, but it still lets you install it on your own environment, right? Be it within your own laptops, your workstations, or maybe even within your own infrastructure, either the private cloud or public cloud, okay? So let's talk about how you can actually discover and deploy some of these models by yourself, where you're not reliant on these hosted models. You can put your own models, and we'll be using Vertex AI, which is actually the Google Cloud's AI platform. Okay, so I'll walk you through that. And by the way, as introduced, my name is Prashanth. So I head the developer advocacy team for a few regions. And just to get started, right? So this is what the agenda is going to look like. And let me see this so that I don't have to keep turning back. Okay, so first thing, I can feel it that, some of you said that you're already frustrated with too much Gen AI, right? But where are we with Gen AI? What have we done with Gen AI? How many of you here have actually built applications on Gen AI? Or let's say written sample code, used Gen AI APIs, any sort of coding with Gen AI? Okay, few hands, that's good, right? And the rest of you probably have used one of the chat applications, right? The Gemini or ChatGPT, you would have used those, right? Now, how many of you used Hugging Face here? Or heard of Hugging Face? Let's start with heard. Okay, and use Hugging Face, a few of you, right? How many of you have heard of Vertex AI from Google Cloud? Okay, good. At the end of this, I think I'll try to inspire you in terms of, what are these different things? What can you do with this? How can you leverage Google Cloud, Hugging Face, and actually deploy some of these models and maybe do some coding out of it, right? So we'll see if you have enough time to do some samples, some tech demos. If not, I'll probably play a small video to show you where to do it. And then you can probably try it out by yourself, right? And of course, I'll be there. I'll be hanging around. You can also connect with me on I'm there as KS Prashu almost everywhere, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, though I don't know why you'd want to follow me on Instagram, but you can find me there anywhere, connect with me, and then we can talk more about it, right? In terms of how you can actually get started using some of these things. So we'll talk about something called Model Garden. We'll see how you can discover, select models within the Model Garden and why you need to do that. We'll also look at deploying models from Hugging Face, right? So we have a very good integration with Hugging Face going on due to our partnership. So we'll talk about that. And time permitting, we'll talk about tuning, managing, and deploying models, or at least I'll try to let you know why it's important to do that, okay, even if you don't actually talk too much details about it. Okay, so first thing, Model Garden. As the name says, it's a garden of models. You have a wide variety of models where you can go and pick and choose models and start trying it out. So if you're looking at building AI applications, it is very important. This is typically what you would do, right? So you would start with actually discovering models. Once you discover models, then you would want to deploy it, serve it. If the model suits your needs, then you can directly serve it and build your applications on top of it. If the model doesn't suit your needs, then you have to do some sort of a fine-tuning, distillation, and so on. Okay. And finally, you build your applications on top of this. You have your versioning, pipelines, and so on. So this is generally how the lifecycle works. Now, the discovery part is extremely important here, because unless you use the right model for your needs, your application is not going to be very successful, right? You'll not be able to build your applications. Which is why a space where you can play around with all the different kind of models, understand what works for you is very important, right? While you have a lot of models out there, generally some of these models are paid, especially the hosted models are paid. You don't want to pay $20, $25 for each model and then try it out, right? So an easy way of accessing it is what you would need. And that is where Model Garden comes in. So Model Garden is a feature within Vertex AI on Google Cloud. It's something you can anytime go and log in and take a look. We have over 130 enterprise-ready AI models, right? And enterprise-ready is important because these are secure models, tried and tested, has good versioning things built in. We'll take care that the latest model is always up to date and so on, right? So these are enterprise-ready models. And you can find a wide variety of models here, right? From the Gemini models, right, which is very popular nowadays, the 1.0 Pro, as well as the big one with the 1 million tokens. So Gemini 1.5 Pro as well is available for public preview on Model Garden. You can go ahead and start using it from there. In addition, you have some of the other foundation models, right? So if you want a text-based model, you want image generation models, you want a coding model, all of these are available there. You have specific task-specific models, which you can fine-tune. For example, image recognition, text-to-speech, right? Natural language processing. So these are all the, has been there in the past, but all these are available now for you on Model Garden. Also, there are a few domain-specific models, like highly customized, tuned models called MedLM and SecPalm, right, for medical domain and security domain. So these are there. Now, these are the Google's models that they have put out there, but that is not all. We also have a lot of open models, open source models, open weight models, as we would like to call it, that you could go and pick and choose from, as well as we have partnerships with many companies, right? And we have their models as well published on Model Garden that you could go pick and choose and try using. So, from, for example, from Meta, from Falcon, the TII, what they published, from Claude as well, Anthropics, Mistral, we have all these models available that you could go and try using. So with that, how many of you have heard of the Claude models, right? Have you heard the research about it? What makes it so good? In fact, there's a lot of talk about the Claude, the biggest one, right? The Opus model. So it's very interesting, right? If you haven't heard of the Opus, I can tell you a story. It sort of gives me goosebumps as well whenever I talk about it, right? The way the model knows what the user is trying to do, right? It literally says, I think you're trying to fool me, when there was a needle in the haystack quiz that was asked. I mean, it's amazing, right? Even those models are going to be made available. So the other two, the smaller models are already there. The Opus model will be available for public preview. It's already there for private preview, but public preview in April. It's April. Okay, that's allowed. I should update that. I should probably go check if it is out there. But yeah, it should be out by now. I think we're at the end of April. It should be there by now. So Claude Opus is as well as there. The good thing about this is not those $25 you pay upfront. Think about it, whether can I use it? Is it useful for me or not? These are pay-as-you-go models, right? So as you use it, as you consume it, the number of tokens that you input, the number of tokens you get output, based on that, these models will be charged. All the models on Vertex are that way, right? So you get a lot of pay-as-you-go models out there. So why is it important whenever you're building your GenAI applications to think about a platform approach, right? We call this Vertex AI platform. It's because selecting your model is just one part of the story. However, there's a lot that goes in it. You need to be able to test your model. You need to be able to tune your model. You need to be able to serve your model. Your models have to scale out. If your application becomes a blockbuster, you get a lot of traffic coming in, right? So your applications, your models has to scale out, be able to handle traffic. If a new version of it comes out, you want to be able to replace it with the version, but not just replace it. What if your new model is performing worse than your older model, right? Because you have done fine tuning, you've done RLHF and all these other jargon that we keep throwing about. You want to ensure that the newer model is comparable to your older model, right? So evaluation, model comparison. These are things that you actually need to do, right? When you build applications on top of your model, especially if you start going closer towards production, right? And that is why you need to look at a platform, right? Which can let you do all of these things in one place. So this is what Vertex AI can do for you. At the bottom, we have the infrastructure itself. So Google Cloud's infrastructure is available for you to serve, deploy, train, test your models. You have the NVIDIA GPUs, of course, the latest and greatest GPUs are out there. We also have our own custom chips, inference chips called the TPUs, Tensor Processing Units. So those are available for you to use as well. All the models can be served on these. Then you have the Model Garden, which is this wide variety of 100 plus, 130 plus models that you can actually go ahead and use and deploy on this infra. On top of that, you have the capability to build experiences on top of this model, right? So this is what we call the model builder. So you can do your prompt engineering on top of this, try out your prompts, test it, you can serve your models, tune it, distill it, play around with these models using the model builder. Then the experiences on top itself, what we like to call agents, that is built on top of this. So you're able to do search applications, you can do grounding, you can do your retrieval augmented generation. These are things that you can do using the agent builder capability within the Vertex AI. So all of this is there. It's available for as SDKs, whether you're programming in Java, Go, Python, right? Most of the popular languages out there, you have the SDKs available that you could go ahead and use. All right. So why this model garden again? There's no one size fits all. You need to find which model suits you the best. This is what it looks like. I'll go through the demo. Maybe I'll talk about it more during the demo. But there's a lot of criteria that you have to think about when you're selecting a model for your needs. First thing is whether the model is an open model or a managed model. What's the difference? An open model is something where you probably have to pay for the infra, right? An open model is something where you have a lot more flexibility, right? You can do some fine tuning on top of it. Whereas a managed model, you don't get those flexibility. But at the same time, it's closer towards a pay-as-you-go pricing, right? Where we take care of the infrastructure, we serve it, we do all those kind of things. You don't need to worry about it. You just use it for what it is. So that's the first choice you have to make. The second thing is the size of the model. You have these huge models. Seriously, do you want to use it? Think about that, right? When you use these larger models, you can get by with some of the smaller models, right? The 7 billion, 30 billion parameter models are good enough. In fact, the smaller models are a lot faster, right? Whereas a larger model, because of so many parameters, your query has to get processed through all your neural networks. It's going to take a lot of time for it to process. However, it has a lot of air quotes intelligence built in, right? So do you want to do complex tasks? Do you want to use the intelligence in the model? Then you go for the larger models. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to have a higher latency. But if you want simple applications, have something to just understand what the user is trying to say, translate it into some tech bits, right? And the smaller models work really well. So that's your second choice. Third thing is what we like to call provenance. What is the origin of these models? What data has it been trained from? Right? Of late we have these things about copyright, right? There's a lot of cases that's going on out there. So has the model been trained on open sources of information, right? You may want to know that before you deploy it for your own application, right? Because you don't want to be embroiled in any controversies around copyrights and other things. So that's very important. You may want to choose models from companies that you trust will maintain the models, right? Not a company that has done a one-time built an awesome model and then for the next 1 year have not done anything, right? So that is going to be very important for you as well when you're building production applications. Where is the model coming from? Oh, by the way, anyone wants to ask any questions, feel free to stop me. I'm just going to keep talking otherwise. Yeah, again, choose your models based, of course, on your use case, right? Those three things that we spoke about before, but also based on your use case. So whether you want language models, whether you want models that does image work, understanding images or generating images, because of course, Gen AI, videos, right? Model that does video work, model that can do document work, summarizing, classification of documents, what do you call it? Sentiment analysis. Those are your document specific models, whether it's speech models, right? Whether you want to do text to speech, speech to text, or in those areas. And of course, data kind of model, classification, traditional ML, in fact, right? Not necessarily Gen AI, but traditional work. So these are the things you have to think about when you choose a model, right? Not just, okay, I want to build an application, let me get Gemini. Great choice, but you can do better, right? There are a lot of, like I said, it's Google itself has, the reason we have a variety of models out there is you can choose what suits you best, right? Not just pick one model and then run with that. Okay, cool. Now, this is something, Hugging Face is one of the most popular platforms out there where you can explore, learn about the new models out there, do it. We have a very good integration with Google Cloud as well, thanks to a partnership with them. So now you can deploy models directly from Hugging Face, or models that you discover on Hugging Face, you can deploy that directly from within Google Cloud. So at the top here, there is a button that says deploy from Hugging Face. I'll probably show it you again in the demo. But then you can choose what model that you like in Hugging Face, read about it, read about the reviews for other users, what people have liked about it, not liked about it, and deploy it in Google Cloud. You can also do that from within Hugging Face. If you go to the deploy button, drop down in Hugging Face, that also has an option, deploy to Google Cloud. And that will bring you back to the same UI. You can deploy models from Hugging Face within Google Cloud. And then you get access to the whole platform capability, right? The same tuning, distillation, the Colab. Colab is our Jupyter notebook for enterprises. Gives you direct access to TPUs and GPUs, right? Even the free version gives you access to the inference TPUs and GPUs. So try it out, right? Go to colab.google, and you'll be able to play around with Colab, which is our hosted Jupyter notebook. The enterprise version, of course, gives you a lot more hardware behind the scenes. So all of that is available for you, right? And I'm just going to go through this so that we can look at the demo. Okay. Thankfully, I downloaded the video. If you have time, I don't think we'll have time, but I can, of course, show this to you live. And since anyway I'm out of internet here, let me just play the demo. Okay, so this is Model Garden. The fonts are a bit small, don't worry about it. You can, of course, log into it and see it by yourself. But if you go to Vertex AI, which is where you'll find all of this, at the left here, you'll find this leafy icon, which is the Model Garden. And these are all the models that we have available out there, right? So you can choose your model based on what you want, right? You want it based on features, language, vision, speech, video, so on. You can choose it. Don't worry, it's okay, no worries. Yeah, all good. Thanks, man. You can choose it based on the tasks, right? Do you want to do classification? Do you want to do, and probably I'm just going to see it here. Do you want to do classification? Do you want extraction, text recognition? Based on those tasks as well you can do. And there's one more category down below, right? So based on your needs, you can filter out these models, right? You see there are 50 plus 85, so that's 130 plus already, right? So those are the number of models that are out there. Most of the things you're seeing on top here are the Google models, but down there you will also see the open and third-party models. Okay, so you choose your models, you go around, explore what models you have, what you would like to use, right? And then once you go into those models, you should be able to go ahead and deploy it. So Cloud, for example, is there, and that's an old recording. So I'm pretty sure I deployed Opus. So anyway, okay, sorry, right? And that's the place. So once you get into any of the things, Claude models from Anthropic are a pay-as-you-go model, which basically means, so these are third-party models. These are not those open models, right? You cannot get those models for yourself, but you can deploy it through Google Cloud and you pay for the infra as you go. Question? Yes, absolutely. You'll be able to see that. So this huge, right? This documentation page is actually quite huge. The scroll bar is right here, but you'll be able to see all the details about it, pricing, the token, input token cost, output token cost, all of that will be available for you. I do not think there's a filter that lets you do that today. You'll probably, which is a great option. I mean, that's a great thought, right? So maybe somebody would want to filter it based on that. I have not done it myself. I don't think it has it, but I can take that feedback. Yeah? But yeah, as of now, you probably have to go into the model and then take a look at it from there. Okay. So yeah, in the case of Claude, you enable it. And in case of the other models, you'll see a deploy button where you'll deploy those models on your own infra. You'll also be able to see the code for this, give some sample code. You'll also be able to do all of this deployment, fine-tuning work directly from a notebook, right? So if you click on the open notebook, you'll be able to go into a notebook and then do your customization from there. Okay, so what else? So the fine-tuning models, task-specific models that are there, and let's just go forward. Is it 10 second or 5 second? Okay. Okay. So this is the Hugging Face integration. So as I said, you have a button right here called Deploy from Hugging Face. So when you click on that, you'll be prompted for a Hugging Face URL. So wherever you find your models on Hugging Face, you can put the URL there. You can deploy it either on Vertex AI, which is your managed solution where managed infrastructure, or if you are into Kubernetes, into GKE, and your applications are running on Kubernetes clusters, then you can also deploy all of these models directly on Kubernetes. So we have integrations there as well, and we have some optimizations as well that's there in Google Cloud that lets you serve and run these models really efficiently. You can choose a region, you can choose your model names, deploy that to an endpoint. An endpoint is essentially that API, right? So once you deploy the model, you have an endpoint which you hit in order to do your completions. You can also choose the machine types, right? So there are a bunch of machine types that you can choose from. So the kind of GPUs that you need. These models, as long as you're deploying it, you need to choose the GPUs that is good for inference. Don't choose those larger GPUs that you generally use for training, right? They'll be more expensive. L4 GPUs are very good for inference, but the larger models, you can even deploy multiple accelerators, multiple L4s. Okay, so this is your experience in terms of deploying the model. And the other way is, if you go into Hugging Face itself, you will see this deploy thing down there. And if you go to the deploy dropdown, you should be able to see Google Cloud, and it'll bring you back to the same UI. Okay, so these are the ways, experiences that you get to deploy any kind of model that you need, right? That you find in Hugging Face as well. So it's probably not just those 130 models here. There are more that you get from Hugging Face. However, important, Vertex AI is an enterprise platform, so we ensure that only thoroughly tested, vetted models are available for you to deploy. Once they're deployed, then those who are familiar with containers, like you have your container registry, artifact registry, you also have a model registry. So this is your model registry, and in the model registry, you'll be able to see all the different models that you have deployed. Yep. So you'll be able to see all the models that are deployed. You can also undeploy those to save the cost. You have your directly deployed models, or you have custom trained models, right? So in that says custom training, if it's not too visible, right? So you choose whatever model you want. Once you go into those models, you can choose to deploy the model to an endpoint. Okay, and the endpoint is how you serve the model. So in this case, this model is deployed to an endpoint. If you don't want to use a model, you just want it to be within the registry, you can undeploy it. And here we also give you some sample, your code in terms of how you can actually make those calls to those APIs. Also, once you deploy the model, you want to play around with it right there. You also have a sandbox by which you can send a response, send a prompt, get a response, and so on. Okay, now, okay, I think that's what the demo has. But if you look at these models, you'll also have hello. Yeah. Now, have you heard of this term called instruction-tuned models versus the not instruction-tuned models? Unfortunately, I don't know what's the term for that, but I'm going to call it foundation models, right? But you have your models. Most of the models that are available to you to use are instruction-tuned models, right? Which is what is most useful, where you can ask it queries. An instruction-tuned model essentially is programmed, or it's tuned to help answer your questions. And that is the one that you can ask, right? Why is the sky blue? Yeah. How many cricket teams are there in the world, right? You could ask what kind of random questions. The models are going to be able to answer you because they're tuned to understand and respond to instructions. But you also have access to models that are not tuned, right? Now, those are something that you could now do your RLHF, you could do your tuning and customizing in order to do it according to your needs. So that is the next part, right? So as we said, if you find models that you can directly use, you go ahead and deploy it, and then you can start using it. But then if there are models that are not suiting your business needs, your business requirements, in that case, you need to go into the tuning side of things. Okay, so we'll take a quick look at what this exactly means, right? So why do you do these things, and what are the things that you can do? Typically, this is what I would suggest whenever I'm working with people, and generally folks, there are, okay, let me not stereotype, right? But there are a good number of people that come to me and saying that, okay, I want to fine tune the model. They have not done any prompt engineering, nothing, right? And what I try to tell them is, can you please check if the model suits your needs? Spend some time on the model. Don't directly go into fine tuning, don't directly go into the high compute work, right? So this is sort of, let's say, the workflow that I would recommend you to follow if you're into this Gen AI, you want to try it out, want to build your own applications. Start with prompt design. You have your pre-trained models that are available, okay? Start with it, do some prompt engineering. With prompt engineering, 90% of the use cases can be solved, right? You'll be able to get your model to respond to you the way that you want it to. The next thing that you could do, of course, is to give it additional information. So many of these models are frozen in time, right? They're not, you won't find any model today on it which has the latest information from the internet as of today, right? It's going to be a week back, a month back, it's frozen somewhere in time. So you want to give it more relevant information or information specific to your domain, your business. In which case you go for what we call supervised tuning. You give it input, you give it some labeling, and then add this to the model, right? So you have an adapter again, this is the way we do it in Google, but you have an adapter that basically augments the model with additional information. The next thing is, how is the model responding back to you? You can, of course, do the prompt engineering. Using prompt engineering, you can get a feel for if the model is working for you or not. But you don't want to do the system prompts and have the prompt engineering every single query that you send to it, right? Because that is also part of your context. In which case you do RLHF, right? In RLHF, you basically give the model, tell the model, this is how, it could generate the responses, but you tell it, okay, I want you to always generate the response in this particular way. This is what I want, right? So you have this A/B kind of a format. You give the preferred way of responding to queries. So that's the next step, right? Where you go do some RLHF on the model to give it the responses in the way that you would want. Now, the next thing is distillation. Distillation, essentially, you have these large models, right? So many of these are 300 billion parameters, 500 billion parameters models. You don't want to deploy these expensive models, right? These large complex models. In which case you distill them. You transfer the weights, which is basically, let's say, the learning of the intelligence of the model for your requirements into smaller models, which we call student models, right? So that is what is called distillation. Distillation, of course, will need a little bit more compute. It's more compute intensive than the other things that we have done there. And distillation is something that you could use to actually create your model models that you put into production. Finally, none of this work, you build your own models. The last option, you might as well just do your own training, right? So you need hundreds of GPUs, you need extensive data sets, and then you can go build your models. But if you want to do that, Vertex AI can help you with that as well. Awesome. So that was the customizing part of it, how you tune and evaluate your model. But then the next thing that you would do is augmenting this model, that is deploying the things into production. So here we have things like RAGs, retrieval augmented generation. So these models knows what it knows, but you want to give it additional relevant information. You supplement it with documents which you query from. So that's RAGs. Grounding essentially queries from these documents, which is the source of truth, so that the models don't hallucinate. We also have function calling, which lets you build real-time applications. So you can have this model actually call out to an API. Actually, the model doesn't call out, but it gives you enough, let's say enough information for you to easily make a technical call out to an API, right? Let's say the weather API. What's the current weather in Bangalore? No model will give you the answer, right? But if you do function calling, you can actually call a weather API and get the current weather from Bangalore. So this is how you actually put your models to use. Again, just a quick summary. So these are all the things that you can do with Vertex AI. What I would encourage you is to go ahead and try this out. In fact, what we have is, this is a QR that you could scan. So I will end the talk here. But this is something that we have available for you on offer. We're giving you 30-day access to our Google Cloud's learning platform called Skills Boost. So we're giving access to that. You can actually try out all these things. Whatever I spoke about, you can try this out by yourself on our learning platform. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. We are in the Google booth right outside. So do let us know. Thank you.